All right, I'm back. I'm eating an Oreo on mic.
What kind of Oreo?
S'moreos.
Oh, that's what you said. I had never heard of that.
They're good as hell.
Whoa. So is it like a graham cracker cookie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That sounds awesome. I'm really a fan of the thin lemon Oreos.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like I can eat 10 of them and it's fine because they're thin.
And they're like refreshing. And they're not like too sweet.
Exactly. I love them.
Yeah, those. And then
There you go.
Java chip is my other go-to Oreo.
Okay, so you're talking about Oreos I've never even heard of. So now I'm writing stuff down.
Oh, yeah. We're deep into Oreo world.
We might as well be doing
Java chip.
We might as well be doing an Oreo podcast at this point.
I was just
That's
thinking about
next.
that. Yeah, once we hit it big with this one, that's going to be Jeremy's first offshoot. Is like reviewing flavors of Oreos while eating them on mic. It's going to be a very specific audience for that one. Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, author of the new book, Funky But Make It Depressing, a comprehensive history of sad boy soul.
Oh, I'm first in line for that book.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'll send you the pre-order link, don't worry.
Oh, thank God.
Jeremy will eat that right up. He was just telling me about how much he loves Sad Boy Soul.
Yeah. And that might be foreshadowing to the episode.
Maybe.
Might be.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm co-host Jeremy, and I just wanted to tell you guys that I got the venue I wanted.
Yeah?
Yeah, to perform my dance quintet. You know, my song cycle.
Oh, I know all about it.
I want you guys to come and take notes if you can.
You want us to come take notes?
Yeah. By the way, it's the 10th.
Whoa, that went over my head.
Of all the people to get that, I would think it would have been Peter.
Yeah, it would have if I wasn't looking up something because I just realized I wasn't ready to do my title. I wasn't listening to him.
Yeah, you got to be on top of things if you're going to catch these Big Lebowski references going on.
That's true, Peter.
Oh man, I missed a Big Lebowski reference. I guess I'll just have to catch it when I listen back to the episode. And I am co-host Peter Cook. And I'm going to be starting a new company manufacturing some sports gear.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're going to start with the Wright catcher's mitt.
This is like a baseball reference that I don't know.
Yeah, so we're going to make the Wright catcher's glove, and we're going to promote it, we're going to create this series of videos on YouTube where I'm wearing the Wright catcher's glove, and we're going to get some of the fastest pitchers out there today, and they're going to pitch the ball. I'm going to catch it with the glove, and it's going to each time it's going to be like 110 mile per hour fastball. Glove grabs it, and I turn to the camera and I say, "That's how strong my glove is."
Okay.
He brought it home right at the end. Okay.
Yeah, I had no idea where you're going for so long.
I did bring it home.
I was with Jeremy. I was like, I don't know shit about baseball. I don't get these references.
I brought it home right over home plate.
Mm-hmm.
Well done.
And joining us today as our guest is the director of programming and production at the Kalamazoo State Theater.
That's my venue, by the way.
Oh, is the Kalamazoo State Theater is your venue? She's also the host of New Standards at WYCE 88.1 FM in Grand Rapids and the founder and owner of Dizzybird Records. Welcome, Nicole LaRae Leach.
Yes, it's great to be here. I'm also the defeater of the daily New York Times crossword puzzles.
That's that's something to brag about. Those things are not easy.
I thought I was supposed to just make up some other thing that I did, which I do the crossword daily, but you guys really took it to a comedic level that I did not, so I failed you there.
Well, we've done it 180 something times, so we get bored and we have to just go way in the weeds with it.
Yeah, a lot of our early ones were more like what you just said, so you're fine. You're in good standing.
Okay, good. I haven't failed yet.
No. And yeah, it sounds like you brought us a pretty darn good record. What did you bring us?
I would like to think it's pretty special because I brought you today O.V. Wright's 1977 release titled Into Something Can't Shake Loose. And it was released by High Records, which is a division of Cream Records. And it was recorded in Memphis at Allied Recording Studio, and I find it to be a perfect example of Southern Memphis soul. And a lot of people, when I was researching this record, were calling this genre, quote, deep soul, because it has a Southern flair to it. So I'm very excited to get into it with you all about this record.
Music from the Deep South.
Indeed, it really is.
And where would you like to start? What song would you like to play first?
You know, I think that the title track, which is the opening track, you know, it starts out with OV's isolated vocals with a little bit of piano before it drops in with the rest of the instrumentation. And I just think it's a great place to start because you can get a really good vibe of where the rest of the record is going.
Excellent. Well, let's start with Into Something Can't Shake Loose, Side A, Track 1.
I done got into something I can't, I never will, I never will, I never will, ooh, never will, never will, I can't now shake it loose, no. I'm into something I can't shake loose, can't shake loose. I'm into something I can't shake loose, can't shake loose. Loving and leaving a woman used to be easy to do, but this time, honey, it looked just like I bit off more than I could chew. I took one bite of your love, it got inside of my brain. Now your love is running through my body like blood running through my veins. I'm into something I can't shake loose, can't shake loose. Done got into something I never will shake it loose, never will shake it loose. Girl, I should have left you alone when I had the chance, but now I can't stop dipping in the party like butter in the palm of your hand. I'm into something I can't shake loose, can't shake loose.
That voice is, obviously so potent and feels like gospel right out of the gate. And there's good reason for that. But just listening back to that again, it reminded me of a quote O.V. Wright said at one point in his life where he describes soul as just being gospel, but you just replace Jesus with baby.
That is perfect.
Yeah, and you can, like, I was thinking about that as I was listening to that, and I'm like, oh, this is, I mean, it's those same feelings of just like being overwhelmed by a thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the early soul hits, especially these kind of rootsier soul songs like this, a lot of times were just gospel arrangements with the lyrics replaced. Like, it's a direct line for sure. Well, and think of like how many singers we've talked about on this show where the first part of their bio is they grew up singing in church.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most of those guys got started in these choirs.
And we're going to add one more today.
No surprise. You know, one of the first things that struck me with listening to this record is it does not sound like 1977 on this album at all. Especially like looking up other records that came out around that time. I mean, it's hard to think that this was on the shelves at the same time as like Parliament's Funkadelic versus the Placebo Syndrome, or our previously featured Earth, Wind and Fire. All in all, like completely different production sound styles. This record it's doing its own thing for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
That was a good song to begin with as well, because as you said, his voice is sort of isolated. It's very minimalist at the beginning, and then it kicks in. And there is at least, yeah, it doesn't sound like other 1977 albums, but some of the production is still clearly of that time. So it kind of tripped me out when it kicked in, when it first kicks in.
Yeah.
What a voice.
Yeah, absolutely. It does sort of too, in particular, that track has a little bit of a disco sound, which kind of makes sense for that time. But that instrumentation, immediately I thought, okay, this could be played on the dance floor anywhere during this time, even though it's quote unquote deep soul and has a strong gospel influence with Southern roots. I still thought, you know, if somebody dropped this at Studio 54, people would love it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where's the 12-inch extended mix of it?
Indeed, that's what we need. But yeah, OV, he began singing in his church choir, and, you know, he had his own gospel music group. The Harmony Echoes was their name. And that's how he was discovered by Roosevelt Jameson, who was a songwriter and a songwriter of that particular track, too, that we just heard. He wrote that. And he also served as OV's manager for some time in his earlier days.
Now, how did OV come onto your radar, Nicole, or this album, or just his music in general?
The day I acquired this album was the first time I'd ever heard him. And the story goes like this. So it was, I actually know the date exactly, which usually I wouldn't know for just any record that I have, but I happened to be in Chicago for Riot Fest in 2016. And I remember it was the Saturday of Riot Fest, and I looked up that date. So it was September 17th, 2016. And I walked into Logan Hardware Records in Logan Square, which now is permanently closed as of 2018, which is a bummer. But that neighborhood was rapidly changing at that time. And Logan Hardware Records largely dealt in used inventory. So they had a ton of bargain bins. It was just one of my favorite places to go and check out, what was in the used bins, because they always had really well curated selections. So we walk in there, it's me and a few of my friends, and we're hanging out before heading to the festival. And right when we walked in, it was quiet in the store. And the clerk put on an album, and he had just started it. And that song that we just heard started playing. And I thought, what is this? And then I kept shopping, and I went up to him once he flipped the record over, and I said, what are we listening to? And he handed me the sleeve of the record. And I said, are you selling this? Is it available? And he was like, yeah, actually, I haven't even logged it into the system yet. So if you want it, let me know. And I said, I do. I would like it, please. Thank you. Then I went and continued to shop. Then I went to check out, and I had 4 records I was going to buy. And he said, I'm going to throw this 5th one in for free. He just gave me this record. He hadn't logged it in or anything yet. And so while I was paying him, my friend came up and said, this record we're listening to, is it for sale? And he was like, you're about 60 seconds too late. Your friend just grabbed it. So I felt very victorious that I had got this record. And the corner is clipped off of it. So that led me to believe that it was likely a promo copy or perhaps like a cutout copy that, retailers would get when they would, get the wholesale discount, and they cut the corner so that the retailers wouldn't be able to send the records back to the distributor for any refunds, and also so that they could not sell those discounted copies at full price. So it's got the corner clipped out of it. The record was in really beautiful shape, so I felt like I won that day, even though, and I can't even tell you what the other 4 records I bought that day were. I definitely know that this one came home with me, though, because I felt like it was such a win.
Wow, that's a great story for how you acquired this album. Might be one of the best we've had.
I was very excited. Very cool that I got it. So I got it for free.
Yeah.
And, it's one of I love pulling it out and putting it on when I'm having a party, especially side A. I just feel like the whole thing flows as one really beautiful side of a record.
I love that story too, because I shopped at Logan Hardware all the time when I was in Chicago. That was my favorite store there while they were around, and had similar experiences. They're always playing great stuff. They always hooked you up at the register. Cool store.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've given our listeners tips for how to shop at a place that is sadly no longer in business.
They did have an in-house record label there called Not Normal Tapes, and I believe that is still functioning. So if you are interested in supporting those guys, you might want to check them out. I believe it was more of like metal and punk, but I could be wrong. I'm not that familiar with Not Normal Tapes, but I know that was their in-house record label at that store.
Yeah, I would, based on their name, it sounds like punk or metal, but or experimental noise or something. Who knows? But very cool. Yeah. Well, we've talked a little bit about Ovi's background. Did we want to go into a little more of that, or do we want to play another song first?
I think I'll throw in there. You mentioned Ovi hooking up with songwriter and producer Roosevelt Jameson, and I read an interesting story about how, Ovi was singing with these gospel groups, and Roosevelt had written this song that he was like tried to sell to Stax, and they were like, yeah, nah, and he was trying to shop it around, and he met up with OV that he knew from the like gospel circles, and was like, hey, you should sing this song for me and record a demo at my buddy's like little label thing. So OV agreed to do it, and the song is That's How Strong My Love Is.
Oh yeah, as alluded to in my intro.
Yeah, so that was the first secular song Ovi did, and it was released on Gold Wax Records, which was like just one of Roosevelt's like buddies' little label kind of things. And then, that song ended up, Otis Redding somehow got a hold of it and decided to record it, and his version went to number 74 in the Billboard charts. Then like a bunch of people did versions of it. The Rolling Stones, the Hollies, Youngbloods, Percy Sledge, Taj Mahal.
Yeah, I first heard that song not through Otis Redding, but through Roland Gift from the Fine Young Cannibals did a version of that song on the Beautiful Girls soundtrack.
Oh, interesting.
Really? I did not know that. That is very interesting. I also thought it was interesting that Otis Redding recorded it just 1 year after OV did.
Yeah, it sounded like somebody with Gold Wax Records somehow like got it into Otis's people and got him to listen to it. And then he was like, oh, this song rules. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and the version that he did, Otis Redding, that tends to be the way that other people who cover it perform it. It's different from OV's version.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then Otis Redding's also, I know you mentioned the Billboard chart, but the R&B Billboard, it went to 18. I wonder how OV felt about that.
Yeah. Probably mixed feelings.
Because he didn't have a lot of commercial success. So I wonder if that really ground his gears.
Yeah, maybe, but it also kind of shined a spotlight back on him, I would think, and kind of helped his career take off. So, I don't know.
Sure. And I suppose the medley on this record on side B does have a couple of covers too. So he covers Percy Sledge's When a Man Loves a Woman. Yeah. So maybe that's just how it was more back then is, you do my song, I do yours. Let's see, what the people like the most.
I wonder if O.V. Wright was happy when Aretha Franklin took Respect from Otis Redding and made it her own. That's what it's like, Otis.
Yes. Yeah, no kidding.
Cool. Well, let's play another song for the people. What song did you have next?
I mean, should we do That's How Strong My Love Is, since that's what we're discussing? That might be a good segue.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
The track That's How Strong My Love Is on this album is actually the third part of a 3-song medley on side 2.
Nice.
Well, we will cut to that part of the medley so that people can hear
how strong your love is.
Yes, exactly.
Woman mean to me. If I were the son of there, I would glow with love everywhere. Even me the moon after the sun goes down, so you could see that I'm still around. Oh, that's how strong. That's how strong. Oh, that's how strong. That's how strong my love is. If I were a fish, now this is a bad situation to be in, that had been cast upon the land, I would stay there. Yeah, just imagine this. If you would let me hold your hand, even be the wind from a rolling storm, I'd stop for a moment. Woo, baby, I'd walk you home. Oh, that's how strong. That's how strong. Oh, yes. Oh, that's how strong.
If my math is correct, this version is 13 years after he originally recorded the song.
Truth.
And it doesn't seem that he has allowed other more popular interpretations to change it too much, at least from what I can hear. It seems like he's still doing it his way.
Yeah, I hear that too.
Yeah, he did the original.
It's his song, effectively. Originally out of his voice.
And it kind of feels like there's more of a weight to it 13 years later for him. I mean, think about like some of the opening lyrics. So you can see that I'm still around. Singing that in 1977 is kind of a survivor of the soul music scene, having seen like, Otis Redding passed away well before this, and a lot of other guys still aren't doing it anymore or haven't survived the changes in style, and he's still around.
OV.
That's a good thought. And I also wanted to look up OV, what it stood for, and it's Overton Virtus.
Yeah.
Super catchy name.
Now I know why he went by OV.
Yep.
But pretty cool. I had never heard anyone named Overton before looking that up.
Do you have a lot of friends named Virtus, though?
Yes. Tons of Virtus. Something also that I'm noticing on that recording, on this particular recording, is the strings and the Hammond B3 and those background harmonies. It's such a beautiful piece when all of those things come together.
Yeah, that whole medley just killed me. I was new to O.V. Wright when Nicole, brought this record to us, and I've been like obsessed with it and just listening to it over and over, and that medley especially. I generally don't like medleys, but
yeah, you've stated that before on the podcast.
Yeah.
You're not a medley man, but
yeah, this one kills me.
yeah,
The whole record kills me. It's just that great sad boy soul.
yeah. No, I really wasn't too familiar with him. I knew him by name, but looking into him, I really can't say, aside from That's How Strong My Love Is, I didn't know much more about him. So yeah, this is a good one to bring to the podcast. Sean, how familiar were you with O.V. Wright?
I've actually been an O.V. Wright fan for quite a while. When I first started diving into soul music after signing on to do the soul-themed radio show, one of the earlier subgenres that really stood out to me was that deep soul kind of sound. I knew I loved Stax and Otis Redding, and I wanted to dig a little deeper. Found O.V. Wright, James Carr, Syl Johnson. The Gold Wax label that we mentioned before is a really strong label for that sound, so you can dig into their whole catalog from that time period. And High Records as well. I always loved that sound. Huge Al Green fan. A lot of the arrangements on here, you can tell it's the same guy who arranged for Al Green. There's a lot of similarities there. But it's just such a good, rootsy sound, very blues and gospel influenced. Love this stuff.
I believe that's Willie Mitchell.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The producer also worked a lot with Ann Peebles.
Yeah.
Yep, and he was co-owner of High Records as well. And then he had his own records more in the 60s that are kind of instrumental soul rock crossover stuff, but his production work with the main artist on High Records is pretty legendary.
It seems like a good point to maybe talk about the players on this album.
It does.
Since we dropped arranger, producer, engineer Willie Mitchell already.
Yeah. What else do you have for us?
Yeah, piano duties in the liner notes, it says James Brown, but I'm just going to assume that's a namesake and not James Brown as we know, James Brown.
I'm looking it up right now, and it is a different James Brown. He was a session player who played piano and organ, also worked with Al Green, Jim Post, The Natural Four, John Prine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Ann Peebles. Probably a session player with High Records, I would imagine.
I wonder if anyone ever pointed out to him that he had the same name as
Probably
James
no
Brown.
one.
All right, sir, you're Jimmy Brown now.
Yeah, I mean, I think James Brown would take that up with him. We got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's also there's a group of musicians, the High Rhythm Section, who are on a bunch of High Records. They're playing with Al Green and Ann Peebles and a lot of that stuff. And a bunch of them are brothers, the Hodges brothers. You got Leroy Hodges on bass, Teeny Hodges on guitar, and Charles Hodges on the organ.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's wild. And Teeny Hodges wrote the song Take Me to the River that the Talking Heads and
Al Green.
many others popularized.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Interesting.
I did not know that. And also the Memphis Horns and Strings,
Yeah.
I believe, are across this entire record.
Yeah. Yep. Memphis Horns did the horns on it, obviously. They've played with all kinds of huge names. Aretha, Doobie Brothers, Willie Nelson, U2, Alicia Keys.
Were the Memphis Horns on the Replacements Can't Hardly Wait, that song that on Pleased to Meet Me? I feel like that was probably recorded in Memphis.
Probably. They've been on so much stuff.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. I looked it up.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean.
Can't Hardly Wait, featuring the Memphis Horns.
Yeah.
Nice call.
Thank you, Sean.
They started as the Stax Records horn section. The Memphis Horns are basically on every Stax recording, and then after that, they were just the most in-demand horn section if you wanted that southern sound. So yeah, they played with everybody as a result.
Wow. The other players that are part of the high rhythm section, Howard Grimes on drums. He also played with Stax some.
No relation to Frank Grimes from The Simpsons.
Absolutely not.
Just wanted to make sure.
And then Archie Turner on piano, who was actually Willie Mitchell's stepson. And Willie Mitchell kind of taught him a lot of music things. And he was like buddies with the Hodges brothers in high school. So it's all this like tight-knit family kind of vibe going on with this thing. And then finally you got Michael Tolles on guitar and sitar. And he was in the Bar-Kays and has played with Isaac Hayes.
Hey, you're a poet. You don't know it.
Good grief, Peter.
Just trying to pepper it up a little.
You didn't like my boring list of names?
No, it was well researched. You brought
Well researched. That was about as backhanded as it comes.
That's great. This is a fantastic sounding record. So it makes sense that the people working on it would be well versed in working with each other.
Yeah.
Of course, I think that it would have been a winning record even if a bad band had backed him up, because his voice could probably carry through just about anything.
Yeah, it's nicer having a non-sucky band behind it, though.
Yeah.
Sean, I believe, brought up James Carr.
Mm-hmm.
And James Carr, when he's listed, sometimes it says James Dark End of the Street Carr.
Yeah, that was his big hit.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's one I first heard through the Flying Burrito Brothers version, and then came to learn the James Carr version, which, yeah, both versions are beautiful, hauntingly beautiful.
I think it works as a, hey, this is my song, and now you know it, but it also works as, it's my middle name, don't mess with me. My middle name is Dark End of the Street.
Don't mess with that guy.
Well, let's get back to a little history with Ovi. His first album came out in 1965, and that was If It Is Only for Tonight. He put out his first 5 albums on Backbeat Records, and he had kind of a string of minor hits. He was more popular in the South, but he never like caught on in a like national big way. And he unfortunately got involved in drugs and was incarcerated in Texas in the mid-70s at some point.
Looks like there's a gap between 1973 and 77 on album releases, so maybe right around that time.
It was right then, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's also when he switched over to High Records, and this is the album we're covering is his first release on High Records. But he would go on to put out 2 more records with High Records, but was having failing health through this time. He was, into drugs and drinking and living a hard life, and his heart started getting bad. He had major heart surgery in 1978 and just kind of kept degrading from there with health issues. He did put out one last record that was a gospel album. He kind of came back around full circle and put out an actual gospel album with the Luckett brothers called 4 and 20 Elders. And that was in 1980, shortly before he passed.
Yeah, it was like November of 1980.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was reading an account. Johnny Rawls was with OV as he was passing and was talking about he was staying with him because he was having marital problems and he's having drinking problems. And they tried to take him to a hospital, but they were like in the middle of nowhere. And the doctor just kind of threw up his hands and was like, I deliver babies and like fix broken arms. Like, I don't, like something serious is going on here and I can't help you. So they up and left and drove like 100 miles to Mobile, Alabama, the nearest big city to where they were. And he was just gone by the time they actually got there.
And how old was he at that point?
He would have been 41.
Oh, jeez.
That's how old I am right now.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard when you put musician's life up to your own. You're like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said it was heart failure. Is that correct? Heart failure?
Yeah. I guess he had like fluid in his internal organs and stuff, it said. And yeah, he already had multiple heart issues going on. So
It's kind of a beautiful thing that his last record, his goodbye record, was back to his roots of gospel.
yeah. Yeah, it feels, fits a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that deeply sad note, what song would you like to play next for the people?
I would like to do side A, song 2, called I Feel Love Growin'.
Yeah. This might be my favorite on the record.
It's so good. It's just it's a perfect second track. You know, I think the intro title track, it gets you hooked and then you're already in, and the follow-up is just it's a song that pulls you in even more and allows you to sink into the record as a whole.
Yeah, I imagine when you were first hearing this in the store and this song came on, you were like, I want to know what this is. I really want to know what this is.
I believe this is the exact song when I asked, who are we listening to and is this record for sale?
Nice.
So you're right on that.
All right, well, let's check that out.
My heart keeps yearning. Love fires are burning. Love wheels keep turning. Oh, it's all in the air. Accumulating power. Blooming like flowers. I feel love everywhere. I feel love everywhere. Too much for one heart to hold. It's getting out of control. And I feel love growing. Lord, I feel love growing. Lord, love winds are rising. My love multiplying. I'm sitting here desiring, yeah, just to hold you close. Woo! explode. The gift in my soul, yeah. My heart is light as a feather, blowing in gusty weather. I feel love growing, Lord. Woo, I feel love growing, Lord.
What's interesting about this is it's the B side as well to a 45. The A side is I Don't Do Windows.
Oh yeah.
And I really want to hear that song now.
Yeah, it's funny because before I thought to come up with my fake occupation of the O.V. Wright catcher's mitt, the glove, I had thought like about trying to make some I Don't Do Windows type of play, but I'm like, but it's not on the album. I haven't heard the song. So.
That would have been a reach.
You're more of a Mac guy. You don't do Windows.
Oh,
yeah. Really could have, leaned into that. You know, I wonder if I was just listening to that track. You guys are all familiar with the, sadly now no longer with us, but more recent soul artist Charles Bradley.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I was thinking of that. Listening to this whole record.
You know, I know that he had been a James Brown impersonator. And obviously was influenced by Otis Redding, but I really started to wonder if O.V. Wright had been an influence on him as well.
Especially when he gets into those screaming aspects or those wails, it really does remind me of Charles. I was fortunate enough to meet Charles, I want to say 4 times. I hosted him at the music venue I used to run in Grand Rapids in 2013.
When he was sick.
And then
he was sick at that
he was
one.
so sick.
I saw that.
And essentially it was him and I backstage, and I went and got him some pho and made him tea and made sure he was comfortable. And really we just hung out and talked. And the fact that he went out there and laid it down as hard as he did with as bad as he was feeling at his age, sincerely, I already loved and respected him so much, but it just elevated to another level.
Mm-hmm.
And he then came back to Grand Rapids to play, I want to say, Art Prize maybe 2 years later. And he remembered me. We sat and talked again. And, I went to the show, and he was just so full of love. And I don't know that I've ever met another human who just felt so incredibly genuine and grateful. And I heard about his death when I was driving, and I pulled over and just lost it because even though I had only met him a handful of times, he felt like such a close friend. And I'm sure a lot of people who have met him feel that way.
Yeah, I was at that 2013 performance in December of that year. And at first I didn't even know that he was sick. And then it started to show as his performance went on. I think he had to sit down, and that he had just explained to us, like, I shouldn't be on this stage right now, but I did not want to let you all down. And he just seemed like the most sincere and just so grateful for his career. And I'm just so happy that he was able to get the exposure that he did in his lifetime. He was one of the greatest performers and just most beautiful humans I've ever witnessed.
Yes, absolutely. We gave him he came into WYCE and did an interview as well. One of those times, I can't remember which, and we sent him off with one of our winter hats. And then he sent us a photo when he was back in Brooklyn. He was in the kitchen chopping some vegetables up, and he was wearing the hat. And I was so excited that he was bopping around Brooklyn with our radio station's hat on.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. I started to get
Sidebar, Charles Bradley.
Yeah, I started to get some Charles Bradley vibes on that song. So worth mentioning him. He deserves OV deserves some attention, and so does Charles.
True.
It does make me curious. I didn't seek out any like live footage of OV. I don't know what he was like as a performer. Has anyone found anything or checked that out?
I have not ever looked at that.
Yeah, I didn't look for any of that either. There wasn't even a lot of his recorded stuff super available online.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to find out what he was like as a performer.
Yeah.
I just have no idea.
I'm looking at the lyrics of I Don't Do Windows, and essentially he's telling his love interest that he doesn't do windows, he doesn't wash paint. You got to find someone else for that kind of thing. I don't mind rubbing the floor, but old-fashioned loving is as far as I'm going to go.
Oh, gotta hear it now. Gotta seek that one out.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Well, this feels like a good time to turn my head to the left here to my friend Sean and say, Sean.
Oh, that's me. What's up?
Can you think of some other albums that are kind of like this one?
I could probably think of a few. I might have even thought of a few earlier and written them down for reference even.
Oh, he's not putting you on the spot?
No, I've picked up on the consistency of this question. I'm prepared now. Up until now, it's caught me by complete surprise every time, but I think I've got it down. Yeah.
Oh, we're finally getting it together here.
Mm-hmm. Professionals.
True.
My first recommendation, and the record that is the most similar to this one, would be by a guy named Otis Clay. Did a record called I Can't Take It. Also came out in 1977 on High Records. So you got basically the same players and producer and similar style. So it's a great place to go if you want some more deep soul from the 70s that's largely influenced by the late 60s and early 70s in a lot of ways. Another record from the High Records catalog in 1977, the previously mentioned Ann Peebles. Check out her album, If This Is Heaven. So Otis Clay is like the most direct representation. Ann Peebles is definitely more on the soul side of things.
And so
with a
good.
very similar sound. So good, absolutely.
Does that one have I Can't Stand the Rain on it? Or was that early?
No, that's an earlier one, I believe.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then if you want to explore more of the direct gospel influence to his sound, I would recommend the Dixie Hummingbirds, We Love You Like a Rock from 1973. It's a bit later record for them, and they're kind of exploring a little bit of a pop and rock and funk crossover sound there with the traditional gospel quartet. Excellent album to dig into. And my final suggestion, a fourth suggestion, if you want to go into more of the blues sound, I would recommend an album by the great B.B. King called Indianola, Mississippi Seeds from 1972. For my money, like the majority of B.B. King's catalog is kind of cheesy and doesn't really do anything for me, but that one in particular has a real funk edge to it and kind of a darker tone than a lot of the other stuff he was doing, and I love that album. I recommend that one to people all the time. It's got an iconic cover of a watermelon that's been fashioned into a type of guitar.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, I feel like B.B. King hasn't come up very much on the podcast, but we really just haven't touched on much blues.
Yeah, I don't think any of us really collect a lot of blues records, so it doesn't come up as often.
Yeah.
Blues dads drove up the prices on all the blues stuff.
You know, I've been finding that fans of the blues genre tend to be very frugal with their money.
Really?
Yes, so they don't want to pay for concert tickets. They probably do appreciate a bargain bin hunt because they tend to complain about how much shows cost.
That's because they spent all their money on blues records.
Yeah.
They bought them all, yeah.
Yeah. You could, that could be a whole separate podcast Nicole, that you could do of breaking down the audiences of various genres and what to expect.
Sure. Yes, I could absolutely do that. Yeah, there would be a lot to talk about. Is Sean the recommended album person, or may I recommend something that I feel could be related a little bit to this record?
Oh, please do. I don't gatekeep on this section.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if I was allowed. So when I found this next record that I'm going to talk about, I found it at Corner Record Shop. And when I put it on, it reminded me a little bit of the sound that O.V. Wright was laying down on this record. And I think it's because of the grittiness. This record is called I'm a Loser by Doris Duke. And it was released in 1970, but it's become one of my other favorite, most treasured records because it just has something special about it. It's also kind of hard to find, but the style and the cadence and the vocal work, I feel, is very similar to this O.V. Wright record. So if you have a chance, check out Doris Duke, I'm a Loser.
It looks like I put that in my Discogs want list 6 months ago, but I do not remember anything about it, but I must have liked it at one point.
Wow, Sean, it's like you come across records all day long and can't remember each and every one of them.
Excellent.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks for adding on one more thing for our listeners to keep an eye out for if they're looking for similar sounds to this, Nicole. And while you're with us, why don't you, if you would like, elaborate on the things you do and where people can find you at doing those things?
Ooh, okay. You can find Dizzybird Records online at dizzybirdrecords.com. You can check out 88.1 FM WYCE online at wyce.org. We are streaming music 24 hours a day. And you can check out the show schedule at the State Theater in Kalamazoo at kazoostate.com. That's KAZOO state.com.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at each of those things you just listed. What are, if you don't mind, what are a couple of things you've released on Dizzybird Records?
Ooh, well, we just celebrated the 6-year anniversary of one of my favorite albums. It's by Hollywood Makeout. It's called Speedo Spider, and it's the second album in a trilogy where all of the records are creatures in swimwear. So the third one came out January 1st, 2020, and that one is Skinny Dipping Scorpion, and then the first album is Bikini Bat. Speedo Spider is dear to my heart because we rented a riverboat for the album release and everybody had to wear nautical gear or you weren't allowed on the boat. And our friend came dressed up as the album artwork, a spider wearing a Speedo. And it was just an unforgettable time. We had a magician and it was just great. So that one is near and dear to my heart. Other artists on the label include Heaters, Cool Ghouls out of San Francisco, Gringo Star out of Atlanta, the Harlequins out of Cincinnati, Las Rosas out of Brooklyn, Grand Rapids bands Lazy Genius, Coffin Problem, Bermuda Teenager, Opulent Ardor. There's a plethora of Michigan acts, but also people that we've met on my music fest ventures. That's sort of how the Gringo Star and Harlequins thing happened, is that I met those guys at South by Southwest and we just became friendly and boom, they allowed me to put out a couple of their records. So I feel very fortunate about that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And some people I don't want to forget about these guys. Out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, Heaven's Gateway Drugs.
Ooh, that's a great name.
They're wonderful people, and I met them through Harlequins, I believe, because Fort Wayne and Cincinnati, I feel like those guys kind of swap cities and play each other's venues often.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll get those acts sometimes find their way up to Kalamazoo here where Jeremy and I are at.
True.
Well, very cool. There's a whole lot that you got going on, and we thank you for taking a little bit of time out of all that to talk this O.V. Wright record with us, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation, and I need to apologize for it taking so long to find a date that worked. So thank you for your patience with me.
Yeah, for our listeners, we've been planning this for months.
Yes, it's been cooking for a while.
Yeah, but you came with a real banger. This is a great record, and
I
yeah,
agree. It is very special, and I feel like it was just one of those things where I was in the right place at the right time.
yeah. Sometimes that it's a great record regardless, but just having like the story of how you found something being so special is just a icing on the cake for some records. So I feel like nowadays often it's like, well, I needed like our stories. I'm like, well, I knew that I would need another record to talk about on the podcast, and I saw this was $5, so I bought it.
Yeah, we burned through our good stories already.
Yeah, we're almost 200 episodes in, so we need.
Congratulations, y'all! That's huge.
Yeah,
Thank you.
4 seasons in here, so yeah. Well, wonderful. Did we have any final thoughts on O.V. Wright before we introduce our final song?
I wanted to mention how often he's been sampled in hip hop. It's pretty crazy, but especially by Wu-Tang and its members. They love O.V. Wright and have sampled him often. I know Ghostface has, I'm trying to think of the song, but I remember hearing it going, oh, that's O.V.
I just looked it up. Ghostface sampled the title track from this album on his song Motherless Child from 96.
There it is. Right.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, we do like to mention samples when we catch them. So good call.
And A Nickel and a Nail, his version was sampled by Method Man for The Show in 2008.
Nice. So Wu-Tang deep into the O.V. Wright catalog.
Wu-Tang love O.V.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I think that we will get out of here. What song did you select for us to leave on, Nicole?
Can we do You Gotta Have Love? There's just a lot of love going on. I know it's I Feel Love Growing, but it's the 5th track on side 1, the last track.
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you for listening to I'd Buy That for $1. I'm co-host Jeremy.
I'm co-host Peter.
I'm co-host Sean.
And I'm guest Nicole LaRae Leach.
Honorary co-host. And album recommender.
This